In the morning, after a night spent in a crowded, cramped hold, the crew disembarks on the slave market. But first, there's a lot of silver counting and shaking of pouches. Everyone examines every coin 5 times, counts, and notes something on pieces of bark.
Why should we roar ourselves?
One says.
And we need the people at home too. I'll have to free 3 this year, so I need to buy more, or there'll be no one to work.
What will happen to them?
They'll get freedom bracelets with my mark, a silver coin, and be on their way. Although Kittilä will probably stay. He's old now. He's used to the coast of sails. He's used to speaking his mind and using reason. He'll build himself a hut and stay with me. But then I'll have to pay him something. We'll work it out. We'll see what the woman says.
The market is crowded. The slaves sit in tents, shackled with iron chains on their hands and feet. Some are sick, some injured. Buyers walk among the enclosures, inspecting, pulling hair, feeling muscles, checking teeth. The women are already naked. There's no point in constantly tearing off their dresses and fighting with chains. A horrific sight. Everything inside me turns when I see it. It reminds me of Africa after the war. I was prepared for this. For public executions, for the sight of slaves, for various things. And I know I won't change anything. I have nothing to offer them in return. Push your own plows? Should I invent a tractor for them? So I'm only interested in faces. I search. For human eyes, mouths with half as many but twice as wide, teeth, rounded ears, hair that ends above the neck instead of trailing between the shoulder blades like a horse's mane. I search for humans. Dozens of times I find someone curled up staring at the ground, and I gently lift their head. A long face, moist eyes like elongated drops of tar, a nose as narrow as a fin, and thick white teeth like grains of rice. Nothing. Instead, I encounter snake people, probably full crews from those ships that arrived at night. I don't see them buying anyone. They're wandering among the tents, looking into the faces of the slaves as if searching for someone. Just like I am. I don't like it, but I don't find the ones I'm searching for, nor any trace of them. No one responds to the calls in English. No one knows anything. Like a stone thrown into the water. The day after tomorrow we set sail. So I wander among the stalls, looking for something to replace coffee, tea, and tobacco. I sniff at some seeds, large oval nuts similar to oversized almonds, various herbs. I show the merchants my pipe and explain what it's for. Eventually, I get a pouch of some suspicious leaves. I buy them as an experiment, along with the nuts, as they have a pleasant, refreshing scent. I also get some compressed, sticky fruits, very sweet, which will replace my dwindling honey supply. I also buy a new cloak and pants, a new pot. I replenish my supplies, but I don't find anything with a Made in Taiwan label. No earthly artifacts. The newly purchased slaves start boarding the ship, over 50 people in total. They're mostly young men, typically of conscription age. To me, they seem like children. They'll live in the hold on the between deck and operate the narrow, nearly 4-meter-long oars that are lowered through sliding ports in the sides of the ship. The sailors remove their shackles, which I accept with relief. One of the sailors, named Ettel Winged Shield, buys a herd of cows and disembarks. He will stay in the city, planning to drive the cattle overland back home. While wandering among the huts and stalls, I come across a sculptor's workshop where he makes commemorative tombstones. It's a piece of rock containing layers of light and dark stone. The man chips away the edge of the rock, leaving a light, flat surface on which he carves various images depicting scenes from the deceased's life, decorates them with patterns around the edges, and inscribes words. One Lif the wolf-bearer, he who once defeated 3, Osmitraj with a broken oar, and who could break the hardest warrior's heart with a song. Mourn him. The carvings pierce through the light surface and reach the dark mineral underneath, making them stand out vividly. The constant sound of chisels and hammers fills the workshop. Ships are returning, and the stonecutter has his hands full. I buy 2 large pieces of board and rummage through the fires, searching for suitable pieces of charcoal. As I sketch, a small crowd gathers around me. Children peek over my shoulder, and onlookers laugh and offer advice. The stonecutter has more orders than time, so I have to persuade him with an entire gold gwitched. But then he drops everything, and I become his customer of the year. He even stops suggesting his own ideas, and agrees that the stones should be placed by the roadside rather than on the cliff. The designs aren't complicated, so they won't take him much time. 2 slabs. One with a clear inscription in English. To the survivors of Midgard Station 2. I have come to rescue you. Ask for Ulfnight Wanderer. I am heading to the Land of Snakes via the Land of Fire. You can leave messages or wait at the manor of steersman Atleaf Flinthorse. Vuko Drakainen. The inscription on the second plaque was done in the runes of the coast, and stated that a certain Ulf Nichesefni would pay silver for news about 4 doers with fish-like eyes, and so on. Above this were 4 faces that I had sketched in charcoal on the board, using Sifril and displaying the images of the castaways on my closed eyelids. The images had to be simplified and stylized so they could be drawn in charcoal on the board and then carved into the stone, but I retained the distinctive features. If the castaways see them and return to Earth, they might sue me. I stood over the stonecutter's shoulder as he carved the eyes. I warned him that if those demons had normal eyes, they'd start seeing and would surely bring the cold fog. He carved without asking questions. You can be as crazy as you want if you're rich. I also visit Smoked Ula again. This time I don't slide off the roof, I don't stab anything into the walls, and I don't mistreat anyone. I leave him another coin for the future and remind him what I'm looking for.
One of the snakes asked about you again.
He says,
I don't like it. I don't like it when they come around. They only ruin my business. This time, he specifically asked about you, a very tall, burly man, known as the Night Wanderer. I told him I hadn't seen you for a few days, but I heard you fought in the Ring of Fire over some horse. That's all I told him. I think, because then, I found myself waking up as if from a dream, and the serpent was gone.
I nod and give him the coin just in case. The snakes are definitely starting to interest me. The problem is that they're nowhere to be seen. It's pointless to look for them on the street, at the market, or on the council hill. And then they suddenly pop up like jack-in-the-boxes. In an alley, in the Ring of Fire, at Smoked Ula's, at the slave market. They know they're not welcome, but they don't hide either. They simply appear wherever they want, take care of their business, and then disappear suddenly, just like snakes. I spend my last hours on the wharf, sipping this expensive, supposedly better beer and observing. In reality, I'm just sitting and thinking. I already feel that I won't accomplish anything in the Viper's throat port. It's time to head to the Land of Snakes. I know that traveling by boat upriver will save me a lot of time, but I'm already getting symptoms that my old skipper friend called portitis. It's a mental illness related to the inability to leave port. Because of a malfunction, needing to replace a chip in the engine, or because someone didn't show up. So you walk back and forth, waiting. In port. I visit the bazaar again. I buy a black sheepskin coat with a hood. Unfortunately, no one is selling any with serpent emblems. I also get a coil of good rope and a bundle of exotic herbs that women use to darken their eyebrows. I'll find pitch or some other ointment myself, even on the ship. I'll make a dye to imitate tattoos from soot mixed with fat and red from ochre. I already have an amulet. If necessary, I could pass for one of them from a distance. With one exception that Glacier didn't seem to consider. They should have sent a shorty. We set sail at dawn, while I'm still asleep. No one wakes me or asks anything of me, but I sense that something has changed and immediately spring to my feet. I hear the sound of feet on the deck, the scraping of various objects, the splash of a rope landing in the water, then the dull thud of a drum and oars, the creaking of timbers, the uneven splash of water. Creak. Splash. The river splashes against the hull. Thank God there's no sound of a whip cracking or groans. We're sailing. I get dressed, strap on my belt with my sword and knife, then step out of the hold and watch the shores slide by. We pass dozens of wolf ships of identical construction, like a regatta class. Identical down to the deep notch in the starboard railing. We pass the wharf with the exchange offices. I look at Smoked Ula's shack and the sterns of the ships docked at the piers. I've barely gotten used to this city, and now it's off into the unknown again. They greet me, and a joyful Grinaldi hands me a horn filled with beer spiced with roots. Beer for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's nutritious. Plus, it was boiled during production, and the small amount of alcohol further disinfects it, making it safer than water, which is contaminated with everything that's fallen into it. Manure seeping through the ground, cholera, dysentery, and who knows what else. The only downside is that we'll all destroy our livers and end up alcoholics. I'd most like to brush my teeth. I ask him what one does when nature calls, and they're already on the ship. The answer is obvious. Grinaldi nods towards the water over the side. I hesitate only for a moment at the sight of a woman walking along the wooden wharf, shading her eyes from the morning sun as she looks at our ship. In the end, I stand on the other side of the deck, thinking that the crews of the ships anchored on the other, rocky, uninhabited shore of the fjord are seasoned men who won't be shocked by anything. At that moment, we pass two ships anchored side by side, sterns to the rocky shore. I see the lazily flapping jagged pennants with the image of dancing snakes, and some skinny fellow leaning against the stay with a cup in hand. Then I mindlessly glance at the trail of foam we're leaving along the hull. It takes a fraction of a second for me to realize what seemed out of place in that picture. Perhaps the opalescent blue lenses of brand Visconti Vector Sports sunglasses? Mr. Scout? I immediately look back at him, sharpening the image, but I see that it's not Van Dyken. It's not anyone from my group. He's short. I see a narrow, rat-like face, hair slicked back into small braids revealing a long, narrow ear, and he flashes a tight row of small teeth like mint Tic Tacs. He rests one leg on the swivel of an arbalist and sips from a tin cup. Local. Jump into the water? Search the ship? Ask for a stop? It's not a taxi. Attack two fully manned snake ships alone? Unreal. I'll only find out that those glasses were given to him by someone who got them from someone else, or they were simply taken from one of my castaways at some point. Most likely I won't learn anything. This is just another clue leading to the land of snakes. I wrestle with my thoughts for a moment, and I think quickly. The answer is onwards, to the land of snakes, as fast as possible. It's about the risk of mass human sacrifices, about the notorious humanitarianism of its inhabitants, about the insatiable appetite of the gods smearing, about the cold fog. If the castaways fell into the hands of the snake people, they're likely already dead or will die soon. If I dock now, extracting this specific fellow will take me several days. I'll have to follow him, catch him unnoticed when he's alone, or arrange such a situation. I might learn something, or I might not, and I'll find myself back at square one, on horseback, heading into the mountains. A week or two behind schedule. Meanwhile, by ship, I'll already be halfway there. So I need to keep my nerves in check, not get carried away by excitement, and calmly sit on the coiled ropes or think about breakfast. It's just a small object that can be carried in a pocket, ripped off a prisoner's face with one motion because it sparks curiosity and attracts attention. It's something that can be easily figured out independently. A trinket that, over nearly 2 years, could have passed through dozens of hands, taken by force, lost in a game of dice or stones, stripped from the face of the dead, given to a relative to repay a debt, or bought at a market stall. These €50 sunglasses could tell me a fascinating story, but I wouldn't be interrogating the sunglasses. I'd be interrogating the rat-faced snake man who wore them. Contrary to appearances, I know enough. I know that no one likes the snakes, so there aren't many contacts between them and the rest. Items that pass from hand to hand, and sunglasses with anti-reflective coating, automatic polarization, and UV filter Visconti Vector certainly fall into this category, move from one snake to another. So, I'm in the right place, on a ship bound for the land of snakes. As fast as possible. They give me a piece of cheese and a cup of sour sheep's milk, along with a piece of flatbread. Rocky fjord shores slide by outside, cliffs and forests rising above them. Below, the creaking and splashing of 15 pairs of oars echoes incessantly, unevenly. The rowers aren't experienced. Some are likely holding oars for the first time in their lives. We're sailing. I head to the bow below deck, clean Jadrin, and let him rest his huge head on my shoulder. I stroke his arched neck and utter some calming platitudes in Polish and Croatian. It's good to speak a few words in a normal language sometimes. The ship is steered by that big, bald guy I met at Skefanar's homestead, fighting the Black Ivy. Grunf Thornheart. What a name. He's taciturn and generally skeptical, but he seems to have accepted me. He sits on the wooden railing of the aft castle, resting a booted foot on the curved tiller. I hear he's Atleaf's regular helmsman. Grinaldi used to have his own ship, but not anymore. The ship and its entire crew, except for 8 men, are gone. I still don't know under what circumstances. I sit next to the helmsman and watch the river. Our young captain has locked himself in the aft cabin with his new slaves. Now we can both clearly hear rhythmic, girlish moans. It's been going on since morning. Grunf smiles under his mustache and taps the deck.
Quiet down there. I can't stare.
I experimentally light the herbs I bought, but I immediately cough and tap everything overboard. It stings my tongue and smells like burnt marjoram. Luckily, they're not poisonous or narcotic, just simply pointless. The boat flows through river bends. Sharp white rocks jut out from the water, cliffs with trees clinging to crevices close above us. Nevermore soars with outstretched wings in the middle of the gorge, cawing deafeningly, and the echo carries. I check my gear, refill my quiver with arrows, tie the rest into a bundle, and wrap it in a blanket. It's getting cold. The slaves at the oars start singing something monotonous and sad. First quietly, then more clearly. I bring a bottle of palinka on deck. We're sailing. Creak! Splash! To the land of fire. We pass the first corpse in the afternoon. It's floating face down. At first glance, it looks like a log, but soon it's clear that it's a person. Drifting with the current, arms spread wide, a round emblem is embroidered in the middle of the back, depicting 3 S-shaped figures enclosed in a circle. The same as on our sail. We drift, but it passes us too far away. Spala Fishknife runs along the side with a spear, trying to pull the body closer, but he only manages to turn it face up. The corpse's face has been eaten down to the bare skull by fish. Only soggy, bluish remnants remain. It's unrecognizable. No one knows who it is. It drifts past us and disappears around the bend. Everyone on board falls silent and just anxiously watches ahead, as if fearing what might emerge from the next curve of the fjord. No one's there, Grunf says flatly, uncertainty evident in his voice. He lifts his leather cap with a reinforced band and scratches his bald head. No hunters, no fishermen. The river is empty. I don't like it. No one likes it. An hour later, we pass 2 more corpses, one missing its head and arm, the other with 3 long arrows sticking out of its back. They call for Atleaf, who's still in the aft castle and hasn't even come out for a sip of beer since morning. He looks silently at the bodies and bites his lips with an inscrutable expression.
This doesn't look good,
He then says in an indifferent tone. Everyone suddenly disperses across the ship, as if that "doesn't look good" was some sort of command or signal. No rushing or panic. It doesn't give the impression of an alarm. Someone brings a bundle of shields and sets them along the railing. Someone's already shaking out chainmail and helping a comrade pull on a tunic over their head. Someone else draws a sword and makes a few sweeping cuts through the air before critically examining the blade, and someone's already standing with a belt in their teeth, fastening the cheek guards of their helmet. I also go below deck, put on chainmail, grab my bracers and helmet. I sling my sword over my back, take the scabbard with the bow and quiver. They watch curiously as I shorten the bowstring with a key and check the pulleys on the limbs. Someone tries to pull the bow, but the 6 strings in front of his face unsettle him. He doesn't know which one to draw. We continue sailing, mostly in silence, with a quiet atmosphere settling over the deck. There's no sign of nervousness. This isn't a preparation for an attack. They simply don't know what to expect. Just a kind of half-combat nonchalance. On the deck, spears, shields, and axes are ready. One of the sailors has untied the ropes securing the arbalist and unlocked the turntable, but then he just sat down on the base of the device, crunching on some fruit. The others lean against the wooden railings, carefully scanning the passing shores. It's empty. By evening, we enter a small expanse of water. To the right, a sizable beach opens up, covered in rocky debris, surrounded by forest. On the promontory, there are small stone buildings with deep thatched roofs and an old wooden pier. It's completely quiet. Not even the dogs are barking. We dock on the starboard side, with the bow pointing out to the lake. Spala jumps onto the pier first, followed by 3 others, all with shields on their backs and bows in hand. Only then do 2 others start tying the mooring lines. 4 archers cautiously head toward the shore. I go with them, I say to Atleaf, neither a suggestion nor request for an order. He's the styersman here, and I should respect that.
Go,
He says. I grab my bow and jump onto the old planks of the pier. They carry their bows the same way I do. One hand, arrow on the string, held in place by a finger on the bow. On the beach, they immediately spread out. Spal takes the lead, the other 3 form a wide line behind him, and I'm at the rear. I assume they know what a secured formation is, so I sling my shield over my back and turn around, as befits the rear guard. Silence. The only sound is the crunch of stones underfoot. Perhaps it's an excess of caution, but I activate Sifril,